Hello, New York Giants fans, and welcome to a new edition of the Valentine's Views podcast here on YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. All right, your New York Giants are on their summer break right now, about a month until the Giants report for training camp and begin working out for the summer. July 23rd is the first practice, and Big Blue View will be there to give you guys all the firsthand information. But between now and then, we've got about a month to discuss the Giants, to cross our fingers and hope that there really isn't any major news involving the Giants, because really any news at this point of the season about Giants players, any news is probably bad news at this point. Let's just be realistic. So you really don't want to hear much in terms of news about the New York Giants. You want to hear the occasional, oh, Russell Wilson's working out with wide receivers. So and so is holding a camp for kids. All that kind of good stuff, but you don't want to hear any real news. So let's get to a few items that came up over the weekend, a few things that sort of news and notes related that came up over the weekend regarding the Giants. And the first one has to do with former Giant Odell Beckham Jr. And I can see the comments coming now. Oh, here goes Ed again talking about Odell Beckham. Can't we just let it go? Can't the Beckham chatter, anything about Odell Beckham and the Giants, can't it just die? Can't it just go away? And I'm going to be honest, I wish it would. I really, really do. But over the weekend, Odell Beckham was at Fanatics Fest in New York City, and a fan yelled at Beckham, "Odell, why don't you return to the Giants?" or something along that line. And Odell said, "I got you." And of course, there's a segment of Giants fans who still love Odell, who still wish Odell was a Giant, who still want Odell to retire as a New York Giant, would like to see him play for the Giants one more time. And of course, that segment of the Giants fans, exemplified, of course, by the fan who yelled at Beckham about coming back to the Giants. Of course, that segment of the fan base got all fired up about the idea of Odell Beckham potentially returning to the Giants. And Odell, of course, was saying that he's open to the idea. And I have to, Sam Kirk, who writes for Big Blue View, is a young man, former, just recent graduate of Penn State University. And he said to me, he messaged me at 7:30 on Saturday morning. Can I write about this? Can I write about this? And I said, yes, of course. Everybody else wrote about it. So he said, for fans of my age, he said, we would love this. This would be awesome. Odell's so exciting for us. And you can tell by the heavy sigh that maybe I'm old, maybe I'm a curmudgeon, maybe I just don't get it. Why would anybody be really excited, really fired up about the idea of 32-year-old Odell Beckham, who hasn't been a dominant, maybe not even a good player in the NFL for 3 or 4 years now, guy who's had multiple injuries. This is a guy who caught 9 passes for an average of 6.1 yards per game last season for the Miami Dolphins and got cut. In 2023 for the Baltimore Ravens, he caught 35 balls. In 2021, he was better. He caught 44 balls playing for the Cleveland Browns and the Los Angeles Rams. But again, not a huge impact. This is not, Odell Beckham hasn't had a 1,000-yard season since 2019 with the Browns. The best he's done in a single season is 565 yards receiving with the Ravens in 2023. This is not the Odell Beckham that you guys remember. This is not the Pro Bowler, the All-Pro, the Rookie of the Year. This is not the spectacular, game-breaking, game-changing guy. At 32 years of age, as a free agent right now, as a guy who's been through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 organizations already as I look at his history, this is a guy who is looking for a job at the end of June, doesn't have an employer. Nobody's banging down his door. He's begging. He wants to continue to play. He's begging. He's looking for a team. And do the New York Giants make sense? Not to me, not in the least. And I'm sorry to say that for those of you who are Beckham fans, for those of you who would like to see Odell back with the Giants, but it makes no sense to me. He's 32 years old, not nearly the player that he used to be. The Giants have Malik Neighbors, and this is not like you would have, Malik Neighbors. You wouldn't have Jamar Chase on the other side. This is an Odell Beckham who is a shadow of what he used to be. You've got Malik Neighbors, you've got Darius Slayton, you've got Wan'Dale Robinson, you've got Jalen Hyatt. Everybody in Giants fandom wants to finally see what Jalen Hyatt can do with a quarterback in Russell Wilson and with other quarterbacks, Jameis Winston as the number 2, Jaxson Dart, the rookie, if and when he gets to play. All of these guys are guys who have shown a willingness to throw the football down the field, which, of course, plays into Jalen Hyatt's skill set, plays into his strength as a speed guy, as a vertical guy. The Giants fan base wants to finally see if that verticality will finally unlock what we haven't seen enough of from Jalen Hyatt in the last 2 years. But you sign Odell Beckham, and guess whose playing time he's most likely going to take? If he gets on the field at all, he's probably taking Jalen Hyatt's playing time. So it makes no sense. Maybe if the Giants were a playoff team, maybe if this was the latter part of a season where they had an opportunity to make a playoff run and Beckham was looking for a job and you thought, oh, we can get a veteran wide receiver. Maybe he can catch a couple balls for us that make a difference. Maybe you do that, but you don't do it now. This is still a young, building football team. And you can't bring in a Beckham who, as I said, is a shell of his former self. He's a guy desperate for a job. He's a guy who will command a lot of attention in the media and off the field and from the fan base, but he's just not going to give you much on the field right now at this point in his career. You can't bring in a guy like that and let him get in the way of finding out once and for all what you have in Jalen Hyatt. So I find the Odell Beckham stuff, for those of you who love Beckham, it's nice to talk about, and all of that, but I find it completely unrealistic. And I find the idea of the Giants signing Beckham, I feel like that would be absolutely counterproductive, and I don't see any way that would happen. I mean, I've been wrong before, but I will be absolutely shocked if I'm wrong about this one. All right, let's talk a little bit about rookie quarterback Jaxson Dart. We know, talking with Ralph Vacchiano of Fox Sports the other day about Dart, and he said, look, as far as he's concerned, we've learned nothing about Dart and through the spring, nothing that tells us anyway whether he will be a good NFL quarterback, a bad NFL quarterback, a mediocre NFL quarterback, a great NFL quarterback. We don't know. The only thing that we know about Jaxson Dart at this point is that he and Tommy DeVito like the show Love Island. And we also know, we saw him throw some good balls. We saw him throw some bad balls. We think we know that New York City is not too big for Dart. We think we know that he can handle the environment. But again, we'll have to see what happens when he gets on the field, when he struggles for the first time, when he throws a couple of bad interceptions, when he gets booed, when the media turns on him. Then we'll see how he can really and truly handle the New York, New Jersey market. But the point that I wanted to mention is that a couple of big time NFL insiders, Daniel Jeremiah and Ian Rappaport, and I think there was one other, it might have been Adam Schefter, recently have come out recently and said that in their minds, from what they know and from what they know about Brian Daboll and from what they're hearing him say, and I've heard all of the same things. I've been at a lot of the Daboll pressers throughout the spring, but in their mind, it's going to be sooner rather than later when Jaxson Dart starts. The Giants have said again and again they would like this to be a redshirt year. Russell Wilson will be the starting quarterback week 1. He'll be the starting quarterback week 2, provided that he's healthy. He'll be the starting quarterback as long as the Giants can justify keeping Russell Wilson in the lineup. If he plays well enough, if the Giants are in playoff contention, if they have a legitimate, realistic shot at making the playoffs, they're probably not yanking Russell Wilson out of the lineup. Brian Daboll needs to win games. Brian Daboll has coached a team that's 9-25 over the last 2 years. He needs to win games to justify keeping his job. The only other way he justifies keeping his job is if the Giants aren't good and then they do pull Russell Wilson and play Jaxson Dart, and Dart plays well enough, the ownership feels like they're on the right path. Feels like Brian Daboll and Joe Shane have chosen the right quarterback. But my point, that I wanted to make is, look, I think it's pretty clear that the Giants, they don't want to play Jaxson Dart until they have to play Jaxson Dart. But I believe it's pretty clear Jaxson Dart's not going 17 games this season without getting on the field. Whether it's a couple of late season cameos, whether it's 5 starts at the end of a lost season, 8 or 9 starts at the end of a season that looks like it's going off the rails, Jaxson Dart's playing some football for the New York Giants this season. I have little doubt that will be the case, that Rappaport, that Jeremiah, that anybody who comes out and predicts that Jaxson Dart will play some football for the Giants this year, they'll be correct. I'm in that same category. I don't see any way that the rookie quarterback doesn't get on the field. I mean, I think I've said, look, the first time Brian Daboll's going to think about it is week 5. If the Giants are 0-4, Brian Daboll's going to start thinking about it. He's going to get asked about it if the Giants start slowly. He's probably going to get asked about it every week if the Giants get to 0-3, 0-4, 0-5, 1-4. The question of, Brian, who's your starting quarterback going to be this week is going to come up every single week of the season. Sooner or later, the answer will be Jaxson Dart. We'll just have to find out. We'll have to find out when, and we'll just see how the season goes. But as I said, I don't see any way that Jaxson Dart doesn't play some football for the Giants in the 2024 season. All right, the last thing I wanted to mention, there was another, not a report, but another suggestion this week from Bleacher Report that Kayvon Thibodeaux could be a trade candidate, could be a possible trade candidate. The suggestion was made to send him to the Detroit Lions. And, you know, who knows? That might happen at the trade deadline if the Giants aren't good enough. If the Giants look at it and they want more snaps for Abdul Carter. But what I keep saying is, what's the rush? Why do people keep wanting to get rid of Kayvon Thibodeaux? I know that there's the impression, and that I've said this as well, that Thibodeaux probably hasn't been as productive as you might want the 5th overall pick in the draft to be. But he hasn't been terrible. He's got an 11.5 sack season. He's got 21 sacks in 43 career games. That's not horrible. Go and look at the statistics from Michael Strahan's first 3 or 4 years. Go and look at the statistics from Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals, who is now 35 sacks over the last 2 seasons. I think Hendrickson had 6.5 sacks his first 3 years. Go look at Shaq Barrett's first 4 or 5 years in the NFL before he became a guy who was registering 18, 19 sacks a year for a while. Go look at all of those guys, and you find that they really didn't hit their stride. They really didn't become the players that we remember them as, the players that we know them as now, until 3-4 years into their careers. Defensive line coach Andre Patterson was pretty eloquent the other day in talking about this when we were talking to coach about Abdul Carter. And he said Carter is unique because he understands already. He has the instinct and the gift of being able to get to the top of the rush, get to the point of the rush where there's contact between the rusher and the blocker, and understand exactly where he can win based on how the offensive lineman is set up, where he might be leaning, where his head is, where his feet are, whether he's come out aggressively, whether he's set soft. Patterson said most players, most rushers have to go through drill after drill after drill after drill because they really don't understand how to read offensive linemen in that way and don't have the ability to react. He said it takes many of them 3-4 years if they ever develop it. He said Abdul Carter already has it. But Kayvon Thibodeaux's been productive to this point. One of the frustrations with Thibodeaux has been, I've talked to Dan Hatman of the Scouting Academy about this. Nick Filato of Big Blue View and I have reviewed it. And one of the struggles for Thibodeaux has been counter moves. What does he do if his initial rush is stymied? And maybe Thibodeaux is going to be one of those guys who gets to year 4 and where all of the teachings of Patterson, where all of the drills with counter moves and learning offensive linemen and all of that, where it all pays off and he becomes a double-digit sack guy on a consistent basis. Maybe Kayvon Thibodeaux gets traded in the right circumstance, but really what I wanted to say is that I just think this rush to write him off, to get rid of him, to say we've got Abdul Carter now, we don't need Kayvon Thibodeaux, we've got Brian Burns. Kayvon Thibodeaux is extraneous, he's not necessary. I think you never, ever want to be in a hurry to get rid of impact players. And the Giants have gotten rid of too many impact players over the years. Go all the way back to, we started with Odell Beckham a while ago, and it was unfortunate that Beckham and the Giants had to part ways. We can talk about Saquon. We can talk about Xavier McKinney. We can talk about Julian Love, on and on and on. But you can't always be in the business of jettisoning your best players. And Kayvon Thibodeaux is a very good player. He can be an impact player. And I think it's entirely possible that we have yet to see the best of Kayvon Thibodeaux. So I'm just saying I wouldn't be in a hurry to get rid of Thibodeaux because I think that we haven't seen his best yet. Anyway, Giants fans, I think that's a good place for me to call it a day. Thank you as always for watching. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.